Hello there and welcome to tonight's edition of The Probe. Tonight we are focusing once again on the arguably the only passion of our nation, football. After that disgraceful showing at the AFCON in Cameroon, our only hope as a nation, if any, is to channel our energies towards the World Cup. But of course, we have to qualify first by going through Big Brother Nigeria, or not so Big Brother, like people say. Because if our acts are put right before the qualifiers in March, Ghana may well be on its way to Qatar. Our major hurdle now is the absence of a head coach for the Black Stars. You must be a stranger in the land if you are not aware that there is some seeming tussle between government and the FA over who replaces Milo. Government's choice, Chris Hilton, is in pole position, while Otuado, assistant coach for Dortmund and part-time assistant coach for the Black Stars, is the FA's choice on the other hand. But of course, like everything else, there's always the political twists and turns, and the big announcement will be made officially this week. And ahead of that, we'll talk about it and get answers to our nagging questions right here on The Probe, live on the JoyNews channel, myjoyonline.com, Facebook. You notice that we are not live on radio today because we're bringing you the live commentary of that game, the AFCON finals between Egypt and Senegal, who are you supporting. Intermittently, we'll be giving you updates as well. So let's roll our sleeves and talk about what concerns us at this point. Who replaces Milo? Who becomes the next Black Stars coach? Hilton or Otuado? Stay with me. Welcome back to The Probe, and my guests for tonight, we have Ibrahim Sanidara, a CAF Media Officer, AFCON Media Manager as well, former Communications Director of the FA. I also have Kim Thyron Grant, footballer, Coach Technical Director. He also had stints with the Busia Dwarfs, Hearts of Oak, among others. He also played for Ghana at some point. We're also expecting the Communications Director of the Ghana Football Association, Henry Asante-Chum. Welcome, gentlemen. You're joining us via Zoom. We're grateful for your time here on The Probe.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Good evening.
Hello, Ibrahim.
Hello, Kim.
How are you? Yeah, good. Nice to see you. Long time.
Nice to see you too. Long time.
Yeah.
Well, nice exchange of pleasantries. I'm sure whilst we are doing this also, we are monitoring the AFCON finals between Senegal and Egypt. So far, maybe I'll just quickly take your thoughts on what you've seen so far in terms of the game as it's gone into the first half, we're going into the second half. Maybe Kim, quickly, if we can just take your thoughts briefly on what you've seen so far.
It's pretty even affairs. Obviously, there's a missed penalty and stuff. So, but it was pretty knife edge. So this could go to extra time, I think.
How about you, Sani?
I find that Senegal are a bit on top. They've dominated the game completely. They've not converted the opportunities they've had. And as it is, in many football matches we've seen, if you don't take your opportunities when they come very early, you might get punished later on in the game. I hope they take the opportunities and win the match. They played very well throughout the competition. And unfortunately, I have to say I'm rooting for them.
We all see your biases now. It could have been Ghana, you know. We're all hoping that this could have been Ghana, and then we could have been talking about ourselves out there at the finals. But unfortunately, 40 years down the line, doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. But that's what we're talking about, this issue about the football and politics in our football here in the country. So after that poor showing, we're waiting for Henry to come because we have not seen an official apology from the FA as it stands now. But let's talk about the race for the next Black Stars coach. Sunny, I know that you have, openly mentioned that you are rooting for Otuado, correct?
Yes, I said it on one point. I said it that it must be on interim basis. One, we're going to play Nigeria just next month, and it's a World Cup qualifier. I'm not completely against Chris coming in, but the fact is also that Chris will be very, very new to the team. And if that is the case, it would be prudent to give the team to some people or somebody who's had a recent experience with the team to put the team in shape for the match against Nigeria. This is perhaps the biggest game we'll play in the next for the next 4 years. So we don't have to take any unnecessary risk. These were my thoughts. Subsequently, I've had, thoughts from other people who say it's the same thing. Whether we win or lose, we need to rebuild. A point which I agree with. If it is on this basis that Chris is coming, I think is welcome. But my thought was that if Otto had the opportunity, because he's had a recent stint with the team, he knows the team inside out. It will give him an opportunity to be able to put our best foot forward. Then after the Nigeria game, whether we lose the game or we win the game, we need to rebuild for the World Cup and subsequently for many years to come. That is where somebody like Chris could come in.
Well, the issue about why we are rooting for Tuadu now is more like of concern to some, because he was there before we went chasing Milo. But that's one issue that we'll be talking about once Henry has also joined us in the studio. Then we'll be talking about that. But for you, Kim, I haven't heard you openly support either Chris Hughting or Otuado, but it looks like we're told that Chris Hughting is in pole position, even though he's not the FA's choice. What for you will be the ideal situation? Is it Otuado or Chris Hughting?
I think it depends on what strategy both the Ghana National Federation Association wants to do, short term or long term. If it's short term, I know what Ibrahim is trying to say, but even if it's a one-off game, okay, it's 2 legs, it's one-off game, and even if we, God forbid, we lose, do we have a plan in place for the long-term plan? So whether it's Otu or Chris, if it's one game, if we lose the match, what then? We got to have a strategy in place to, even if we win or lose, we still got to have a plan for the long-term strategy for the football, for the Ghana football. And at the moment, okay, you can bring in Atu, but then what? As a temporary, then, okay, he wins, he goes to World Cup, then the hands will be forced to keep him there. Is he 100% committed to the national team because he's with Borussia Dortmund? He's an assistant coach for Borussia Dortmund. So he has a long-term contract. Is he prepared to leave that contract to come to a job where, he's not getting regular day in, day out training with the players, etc. So international football is totally different to club football because you're every day with the players. With the national teams, you have them 2 weeks for certain through the FIFA window calendar. So it's a difficult situation. That's got to be down to the GFA to actually sit down and say, right, we're going to go this way. Win, lose, whatever happens, we're going to stick with Chris and we're going to have a long-term plan strategy in place. If it's going to be a short-term, right, it's short-term fix, then, okay, win or lose, we go with Otu, and then even if we lose or win, there's got to be somebody who's coming in for the long-term, even if we go to the World Cup, to carry on from there, because there needs to be good planning and strategies put in place. It's a tough situation. Whoever comes in is going to have a tough job. There's going to be pressure on them straight away anyway, because it's Ghana, Nigeria, and it's a one-off game that's going to get you to the World Cup.
I see what you're doing there. You have not stuck your neck out for any of them. We're hoping that you do so, because it looks like you played it safe with either.
No, not really. To be honest, it's not safe. I was just trying to give you a little bit generalized. It's, you can look at the history of Chris's background history. If you want to really go for a very experienced coach who's seen it, who's done it, but coaching in the African terrain, dealing with African mentality players, the culture is totally different. I understand Chris's histories but he doesn't understand the terrain. He doesn't speak the language, and there is different characters, different. I know Ibrahim will agree. There's lots of challenges in Ghana football, and behind the scenes that you need people that you can trust, who you can work with. So that's why I'm saying there is different, and same as for Otu as well, because he's been out of the country working in German league for a very long time. So there are challenges for both of them, regardless who gets the job.
Okay, well, we'll get to Henry in the studio, but Sani, let me briefly come to you on this. I'm sure you are in the corridors of CAF. They've been monitoring the situation here in Ghana regarding the search for the next Black Stars coach. What is the talk in the corridors of CAF? We've heard some raise concerns about possible interference by government, for that matter, in what exactly is happening at the FA level. What really is the definite talk at CAF when it comes to this particular issue?
I can tell you as a matter of fact that CAF are unhappy with talk of them hearing that government is directly trying to recruit a coach for the national team. I've been confronted maybe by 20 FA presidents across Africa telling me that what is happening in Ghana is it just because of one defeat that the whole system must crumble. The CAF General Secretary himself, who was in charge of football federations at FIFA before he took that position, also called me into a meeting and asked me for a briefing of what was happening in Ghana. And I told him exactly what was happening. And he came to the conclusion in our private conversation, his thought was that, everywhere in Africa, there must be cooperation between the FAs and the government, appreciating the fact that the government spend money to help run the national teams. But he also insisted that there must be boundaries. He was saying that we as Ghanaians that work with CAF should be able to send.
It appears that
there are limits to what governments can do and what governments cannot do. So they are not happy about what they are saying, but because Ghana has just come out from normalization, they don't want to come in hard. They want to take things slowly so things can be solved internally. And thankfully, the Ghana FA has not reported anything to them. They've just heard it by media reports. And I hope that, we do things quietly. There are lots of things we can do, not necessarily playing it out in the media. There are lots of things between government and the FA that can be done at the background. We don't need to play these things out in the media. The media will be happy if you give them tips here, if you give them leaks. They'll be happy to run with it. But this is what message goes out to the public and doesn't paint us in a good picture. So maybe in the future, I would call for the proponents of government and the FA to have more dialogue at the background before things come to the fore.
Okay. Well, thank you. Henry, welcome to the studios. Very good to see you. Did I miss it, or there's been an official apology from the GFA to Ghanaians on our poor showing in Cameroon?
No, officially there hasn't been.
We don't deserve it?
Any apology, but I think I've spoken on platforms, including Joy FM yesterday, where I apologize to Ghanaians for our inability to perform well at the competition. Obviously, we did not go to Cameroon to add to the numbers. We went to Cameroon with the aim of satisfying Ghanaians, for that matter, putting in a performance that will be satisfactory. But I mean, we all know what happened. We lost our first game against Morocco. We were thinking we could bounce back in the game against Gabon, scored first, conceded late, and drew that game. And then again, we lost to the Comoros by 3-2 and exited the competition. It wasn't a good showing. We haven't been that poor in over 10 years. And so if you want to go back to 2006 when we exited at the group stages, even in that tournament, yes, we lost our first game to Nigeria, but we won our second game against Senegal before losing to Zimbabwe in the third game. So yes, things have not been good. We were all surprised to see how things panned out on the field of play. Preparation-wise, we thought we gave the team all they needed to excel. We went to Cameroon with loads of hope and loads of expectations, but that's how football goes sometimes. I don't want to believe that in 2018, when Germany went to the World Cup as world champions, their plan was to exit at the group stage. But that is what happened. Same can be said of the Algerians, who also exited at the group stage as defending champions. But it happened. So, I mean, we are used to always making it to the semis and then fighting for the title. In 2012, we made it to the semis, lost to Zambia, the eventual winners. 2013, we made it to the semis, lost to Burkina Faso, who lost to Nigeria later. In 2015, we made it to the semis, and then we beat Equatorial Guinea, who was then the host, and made it to the final and lost to Ivory Coast. In 2017, we again made it to the semis, lost to Egypt, and sorry, lost to Cameroon, yes, and then Cameroon beat Egypt in the final, and in 2019 we exited at the round of 16 when we lost to Tunisia on penalty. So it's been progressive from 2006, 2008, 2010 when we lost to Egypt in the final as well in Angola. Unfortunately, we found ourselves in that situation where we needed to come home only after the group stage.
Unfortunately, many Ghanaians are not interested in the statistics. We're hoping that at least that 40-year curse would have been broken at this time, because that's the assurance we're giving that was going to happen. But we accept the apology. I accept. I don't know about the others, what they would say about it. But I'm sure we've gone back to the drawing board since we returned from Cameroon. What exactly went wrong? Was it at the bench? For which reason we are letting Milo go? Or was it the FA's decision to let Milo go? Or you were under pressure to let Milo go?
Well, what happens after tournaments is that we have 3 bodies who supervise our participation in every competition. First of all, we have the technical team, we have the medical team, and we have the management committee. The management committee obviously takes decisions as regards planning and implementation. So they submitted their reports. The medical team also submitted their reports. Obviously, there were a number of issues that came up or cropped up in the competition. Why Wakasu was not playing, why David Abagana got injured, the injury to Andre Ayew and all that. So they needed to submit a report to the FA. And then, of course, the technical team also needed to submit a report to the FA. So after considering all the reports, the decision was that the head coach had to leave. Okay. And that was announced, I think, on Thursday, 2 weeks ago, after the meeting of the Executive Council. Immediately after that decision, the search for a new manager began. The Executive Committee had 3 things in mind. They looked at the immediate term, the mid-term, and then the long-term plan. Obviously, the long-term plan is to make sure that your junior national teams do well in international competitions. But for the fact that the Black Satellites won the under-20, we wouldn't have found a certain Abdul Fatawi Shahaku. So when your teams begin to do well, it means you have a future for your senior national team. So that is a long-term plan, and it means you need to build from the basics. And I am glad to announce that, yes, we are building from the basics, and that's why we were able to secure a $5 million sponsorship for the juvenile competitions. We began this year, and we had Mal FC from Greater Accra emerging the champions of the national championship. And then the mid-term plan was to just try and see if you can improve the team. Okay. In improving the team comes across, different departments: technical, the playing body, backroom staff, medical, and a whole lot, because there are different facets of the industry. Then the short-term plan is to find a manager who would supervise our 2 games against Nigeria. And at that particular meeting, the short-term plan was to speak to Borussia Dortmund and Otoado, for which reason the president traveled to Germany with Tony Bafo to begin negotiations with Borussia Dortmund, because Dortmund refused to release him for the AFCON. So it means you needed to go back to the table to speak to them and give them reasons to release Otoado. So we're expecting the president hopefully on Monday, which is tomorrow, and once he comes back, yes, okay. Once he comes back, he would submit his report to the Executive Council, and then a decision will be made, which will be forwarded to the
What was the word from Otoado? Has Borussia Dortmund accepted to release him, at least?
My last conversation with the president was that the talks have been positive, but it comes with certain conditions as well. So, and that conditions, because yes, the FA appoints, but government takes care of the expenses, what have you. So you need to come back and engage government and see if you would, be at par in terms of decision making. Then from then you can progress.
But it's interesting that it's positive with Otoado, but we're hearing that Chris Hughting is in pole position for the job, and that the FA is going to make that big announcement this week. That's inaccurate?
I don't know about any such decision. As far as I am concerned, we haven't met the ministry. I know that we are stakeholders in development, especially the government is recognized in providing infrastructure and providing funds for the development of football. But as technocrats, we are responsible for the decision making. So yes, these are things we read in the media every day. You wake up to stories in the press that government is trying to impose a coach on the FA. I don't remember, sitting in any such meeting since our last meeting with the Honorable Minister of Sports, which called for the dismissal of the technical team and also the dismissal of the management committee. That has been our last engagement, as a body. I don't know if certain individuals have been spoken to, but officially, I've had a word with the General Secretary. I've spoken to members of the Executive Council, and collectively, they have all denied knowledge of any such decision by the ministry. So, yes, the ESCO takes responsibility of such decisions. They have the powers of appointment, so they will need to convene a meeting. And if it is that government has a recommendation, we can always, dialogue, because as stakeholders, we can agree to disagree. We go into meetings, come up with all the suggestions and the discussions, but in the end, we have always taken a decision that is in the best interest of Ghana.
It's interesting because what we know is that Chris Hughton was going to be announced, but there are questions, a lot of questions from the audience on this particular issue. I'm sure as we go on, you get to give further clarity to it. Maybe we should just start with the questions, the first part of it. That we just received. This one is from Facebook. Kwame says, can Henry Asante-Chum confirm if a decision has been made to pick Chris Hughton as Black Stars coach? So he's been addressing that. But Sefa also says, was there at any point a friction between the GFA and government on whom to pick as coach? Kay says, what was the GFA president in Germany for, and what has been the outcome of that engagement? Kay. Okay, Smalley says, what is the agreement with Coach Milo on the compensation package? Kweku says, how prepared are we for the Nigerian game with a little over 2 months to go? Tanko says, how can the GFA navigate the stormy weather of satisfying government and also not yielding completely to governmental interference? Lambert says, are we making any progress as a country to get some of the Ghanaians born outside to play for us? And is the GFA making any conscious efforts in that regard? Lord says, what's the updates on the stadium at which we'll play our playoff against Nigeria after CAF rejected Kumasi? So that's Lord, a number of the messages. Let me bring in Sunny and Kim, and then I'll come to you, Henry. A number of questions for you as well. Kim, are you surprised to hear that there's actually no decision regarding Chris Hughton, as we've heard in the media? At least we're all convinced that it appears that Chris Hughton had been giving the position, but we've been hearing Henry give clarity on that. Hello, Kim. You have to unmute, Kim.
Sorry, my apologies. Yeah, of course. No, I'm not surprised because everything's done confidentially and it's internal matters. Obviously, the media speculate, try to get as much information as possible, but it's something that obviously, my experience as a director of football within a club system or international system, you keep everything. You hear all the noises going on the peripheral, but internally, it's a totally different scenario. So I'm not surprised because until you get an official statement from either the government or from the GFA, which normally will come through them, then you have to go through that. But obviously, with football, you get lots of speculations and what's going on and everything. And obviously, Henry has explained how everything, the process has been going from after the AFCON and now, on a temporary basis, etc. So it gives a little bit more clarity what's going on. Regards to Chris, obviously, nothing's been said on that. So at the moment, I think it's just speculation from the media. Until we hear from the GFA, obviously Henry himself and etc., then we can move on from there. But we can all speculate on who we want. But at the end of the day, it's about coming to common ground with both the government and the GFA, because obviously the government subsidies of the financial aspects, and then they make a final decision what's best interest for the Ghana football.
Well, Henry, there are a number of questions also that's coming up on First, he wanted you to confirm whether a decision has been made. You've been speaking about that, whether Chris had been picked as Black Stars coach, and you said that's not the case, and that the GFA president is still in Germany, will be back tomorrow, and then the executive council will be briefed on that. But as it stands now, nobody in government has communicated to the GFA about Chris Hughton.
No.
He's not even on the table for the GFA.
I cannot say he's not on the table, because once a job becomes vacant, it's open to all. Personally, I've received 17 calls from agents and representatives of coaches. My WhatsApp, platform has been bombarded with messages from unknown people, and then also the official email, address of the FA has as well received loads of messages, and they come in on daily basis. So once a job becomes vacant, there are a number of people who would express interest in coming in. So I cannot say Chris is not on the table. He is a coach who is available and who maybe would like to come in as the next coach of the Black Stars. The last time I checked, Steve Bruce was also a coach who lost his job as Newcastle United, and if he's interested, he can also apply. So yes, once we have not named a coach, it is open to all.
So what exactly are you doing now? Headhunting, or you've just spoken to Otoado? Apart from Otoado, who else is the GFA speaking to?
At the moment, the decision has always been to get Otto on board to play the 2 matches. After that, then we have a lot more time in front of us, because if you play the qualifiers, 2 legs in March, in the last week of March, you have, let's say we've qualified for the World Cup. The World Cup is in November. It means you have about 8 months to prepare for the World Cup. Now the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers also kicks off in June, and you would have about 4 months to start preparing for that as well. So you have a lot of time in front of you to take a decision, to look around, to scout, and to consider all the options. Then you can name a long-term coach to take over. That was the plan of the Executive Council. And until it changes at their next meeting, it is still the plan of the council.
Okay, it's Otto. But the question for some is that you had Otoado, but you bypassed and still got Milo. So why is he now?
He wasn't in, there were a number of candidates who were considered for the assistant coach position. It wasn't just Otto. We also considered George Boateng for that role when Siki Akono was the head coach. Unfortunately, just as we met George and discussed the issues with him, he was appointed as the U19 coach of Aston Villa. And so he wanted to explore that option until the job becomes available, maybe a year or 2 or whatever. But at that time he was not ready. So as soon as the opportunity came for us to look for other coaches, when CK was sacked, Otoado's name cropped up again. So we spoke to him, we spoke to Dortmund, they gave us their permission and blessing. We spoke to Otto, he also agreed to come on board as an assistant coach, but only during international breaks.
But why would we want to get a part-time assistant coach?
We had 2 assistant coaches. We had 2 assistant coaches. We had Maxwell Konedu and then Otoado. But I mean, we are obviously not the first national team to get an assistant coach on part-time basis. The Belgians have Thierry Henry as an assistant to
Roberto
Martinez.
But this time you want him for the top job.
Yes.
And you still have to...
Because I mean, in arriving at this decision, the discussion was simple. The discussion was that you need someone who has foreknowledge of the team, someone who wouldn't come and take 1 week or 2 weeks to study the players and their mentality and their attitude. At least Otto was Milovan Rijvaart's first deputy. They played Zimbabwe back-to-back, they played Ethiopia, they played South Africa, and so he has some knowledge of the team. And it wouldn't take him time to now come in and be overawed by the state of the team. But then he comes in with some sort of knowledge of these players, how they behave, how they react, their mentality and all that. So it will be easier to manage the situation in this critical stage or moment. And that was why Otto was largely discussed by the Executive Council. So it is not as if he sat there, he wasn't doing anything, and we are now going for him. Let's not also forget that, but for the fact that the Bundesliga resumed in January after going on Christmas break, Otto would have been in Cameroon
But he was not.
to help. He was not, because Dortmund refused to release him for the Africa Cup of Nations. So if it is that we find ourselves in a dire need to get someone to play those 2 matches, and he has been around, and he has the quality and the competence, why can't we go back to him? That was the reason for that particular decision of the Executive Council.
Okay, well, there are other questions that they have for you, but let me bring in Sunny on this. Sunny, there are concerns. There's a question from Tanko that's asking how the GFA can navigate the stormy weather of satisfying government on one hand and also not yielding completely to governmental interference. Tanko, maybe you have an answer for Tanko.
My only suggestion will be what I said earlier, that they should do a lot of background talks. I've seen a lot of leaks to 2 particular radio stations. I don't want to mention them for obvious reasons. It's not healthy. I think that those leaks should stop. If the drip, drip, drip of the leaks go out, things that can be done, in the room, you can arrive at the same conclusion without attracting attention outside, if this is indeed what government wants. So if government is really keen on the position, I would suggest to government operatives that, look, call the guys from the FA into a meeting. Tell them that, look, you think this way, but we think this way, and we feel very, very strongly about it. So you can judge and come to a conclusion. And not also leave the FA looking a little bit weak in its approach. From how things have played out, people might think that the FA is not truly in charge. And this is what gives people from outside the notion that government is interfering. You can achieve that same objective without necessarily coming out with the media leak. So I'll plead with government that if they are keen on a position, they can achieve that aim without, going out with the leaks. Let the leaks stop, call the FA guys. I think that they will play ball with government, whatever it is. And also I'm worried. My worry is simply that if it comes out, that Chris is coming to coach the national team, the notion that a lot of people would have, for instance, is that it is this government that appointed him. Now, the danger in future is also that when another government, perhaps not the ruling government, another government comes into power, it will think that this man was appointed by our opponent. Let's get our man in. And this is where, it begins to really taint national team appointments politically. So there are nice ways to do things, and I know they know. They know, the way, and these things, it's not the first time. It's not in Ghana where these things, it's not only in Ghana where, such maneuvers have been done without necessarily being seen to be government interference. So there are nice ways to do things. Let's do it that way.
Well, Kim, you are a coach too, and a footballer, I should add. So from what we're hearing, Chris Hughting, in fact, we're told that that's government's choice, to the extent that we're even hearing that they're going to pay him, $120,000
Really?
a month. That's what we've heard. Now we know that the GFA is also talking to Otoado, in fact, far advanced. Everything is almost done. Then the Executive Council will be briefed on it. It looks like Otto is in pole position for the GFA as well. So from what we're hearing, government on one hand, GFA on the other, and it looks like the politics is at play. As a coach, as the 2 coaches, I'm sure you would understand how these coaches will be thinking at this point. What would you say will be happening with Otto?
Well, of course, it's obviously if it's going to be those 2 guys fighting for that one position, it's going to be, as a coach, you'll just be thinking about yourself, what's going to be, and I'm sure they're doing their background research of all the players. They're doing their due diligence in terms of, planning for the next Nigerian match, and of course all the external matters that's going on. Especially Chris, he's a very experienced guy. I don't know so much about Otu's background in terms of coaching and stuff, But I played against Chris before when he was at Tottenham and when I was at Charlton. And I was also been obviously followed him when he was being a professional coach in the Premier League, etc. So he can deal with the media side of things. He can deal with the pressures because obviously to coach in the English Premier League as a head coach, it's not, the pressures are there, you know, especially when the teams he's managed have always been at the bottom part of the league, apart from the Championship where he brought Newcastle back up. But for him, I think he'll be just trying to get, if he's the one that is being pushed across, then he'll be trying to focus on getting this matter sorted ASAP, as well as trying to do background checks and due diligence about what players should be brought in, scouting process, you know, just putting, and I'm sure Henry will agree with me, there's lots of work that needs to be done behind the scenes, as well as Sani, I'm sure you agree that there's so much work to be done. And you do need a group of people that you can trust and work with to make sure everything functions correctly, from camping to, you know, discipline to training tactics, formation. There's so much, and scouting, statistics, you know, on each, there's so much to do. And if Chris is free, yes, he's available. And I know Henry spoke about he was not available. Dortmund refused for O2 to come. What happens if in future it happens again? You know, through the course that if we do qualify for the World Cup and our preparations. So, you know, and Qatar is in December. You know, again, that will be down through the middle of the German Bundesliga stuff. So there is lots of factors that needs to be considered, and I'm sure O2 as well will be looking at all this and getting the permission from Dortmund. So I think they'll be both very cautious, but optimistic about them getting the job and able to do the job.
Well, we've heard Henry also add that it's just for the 2 games for Nigeria. That's what they're looking at, maybe subsequent, just the short-term plan for O2 at least. That's what he mentioned. But Sani mentioned that there should be background talk between government. If government wants Chris Hilton, they should speak to the GFA about it. Maybe you would actually agree. Would that be the case?
Well, I don't know their plan. Unfortunately, I don't speak for the government, so I don't know their plan.
But since this name came up in the media, you've not reached out to anybody in government on it, whether indeed
it will be wrong.
Government.
It will be wrong to pick up a phone and call government and say, this is what I am reading from the press. So is it true or is it not true? I think it will be wrong, because you also have a mandate, and your mandate is to run the Football Association, a way in which you believe would bring results, a way you think would be in the interest of the ordinary Ghanaian. You take decision as a body because I'm sure the Executive Council was voted into power to run and manage football. So I think, but I mean, as stakeholders, I mentioned earlier, we've always engaged in meetings. Immediately when we returned from Cameroon, the ministry summoned the FA to a meeting which did not even last for more than 1 hour, because it was just, you know, a directive. We spoke about a few things, and then a directive came from the ministry. The FA needed to act immediately, which indeed the Executive Council met to discuss, and a decision was taken, and that was in reference to the future of Milo.
Well, speaking of Milo, there was a question about whether there's an agreement on his compensation package. How much really is he taking out? Is he gone?
He's gone, yes, but we haven't paid him. His severance package
and
or whatever.
He agreed to leave without...
Milo wasn't in Ghana at the time of the decision. He took permission to travel to Europe to seek medical attention, and then I think 2 or 3 days later, the Executive Council met to take that decision, and which was duly communicated to him and his management. They took it in good faith, and we moved on. But the assurance from the FA was that we would meet government and get back to him as regards when his compensation will be paid.
So you've not agreed on the amount, how much
the ministry and the FA would meet, will look at all the details in the contract, and then communicate to him how much will be paid. As we speak, I don't know yet.
Interesting. Well, so the issue about our preparedness for the Nigerian game, even though we do not have a coach just yet? That's a Kweku's question. How prepared we think we are for it? It's in March.
Well, it's in March. Unfortunately, you cannot play any friendly game. You can only assemble 3 days before the competition or before the first leg in Ghana. And so that is what we are working towards. The FA is in direct contact with all our players, those who played at the AFCON and those who are still eligible, who couldn't make it to the Cup of Nations in Cameroon. We haven't closed our door to any player. The national teams department led by Alex Asante is always in contact with these players. And I'm sure that whoever takes over will be giving the data of our players abroad. I'm sure whoever takes over also will have an idea of players he would want to invite based on the philosophy of that individual coach.
Without any interference from the GFA?
No. There is a plan that we always follow. And that plan, you cannot depart from that plan. And that plan is that when you settle on your team, you need to meet the executive, you need to meet the management committee and give reasons for selecting those players. And that is a plan. That is a plan that has been around for years. The executive council has technocrats, the management committee has technocrats who serve on the management committee, and they ask questions.
But it appears that some players have automatic positions in the team, even though most of the time they don't.
And who are those players?
We've heard about Philmont, for instance. Dreams FC has always come up.
The issue is that when Ghana won the Under-20 World Cup, 3 players were promoted by the then coach Siki Akono. The 3 players were Ishahaku Abdul Fatau, Danlad Ibrahim of Kotoko, and Philmont Bafor of Dreams FC. Danlad has been in and out of the team without questions. Ishahaku has been a mainstay, even though under Sike he never played a game. Then Philmont Bafor. It is unfortunate that Bafor gets to, receive all the flack because he is not being played. It is not the fault of a player when he is not being played. It's the decision of a coach to choose his 11 and those who are fit enough to be in the team when he is looking at options on the bench. A player cannot force a coach to put him in a game. It happens all over the world.
Okay.
And so it is unfortunate. But Philemon did not just walk into the team. It was after the AFCON that we won. Then the coach gave him that opportunity or took the decision to promote 3 players, just as Milo did in 2010 when Ghana won the World Cup in Egypt. Then he promoted Daniel Ajay, Dominic Adia, Andre Ayew, Jonathan Mensah, Samuel Inkum, Emmanuel Ajiman Bedu, and then Opoku Ajiman. About 8 of them were all promoted. This time 3 got promoted. It's unfortunate, but that Philemon never got the chance to play. It is unfortunate.
Okay, so the question about the update on the stadium at which we'll play our playoff against Nigeria. CAF.
We'll play in Cape Coast. We'll play in Cape Coast. We have already communicated to CAF. There are regulations that govern football. You need to follow those regulations judiciously. 90 days to every game, you need to confirm your venue. Unfortunately, at the time, CAF wanted us to confirm the venue. Government had not informed us that they would use the Cape Coast Stadium for the 6th March Independence celebration. So Kumasi never came up because at that time, we did not even submit Kumasi during the main World Cup qualifiers. So if it is that government had engaged us at the time, or the NSA had engaged us at the time, we could have communicated to CAF to then send people to come and inspect the Kumasi Sports Stadium. Okay. Nigeria decided not to play at Lagos as they did during the qualifiers. So they communicated to CAF that they are moving their venue from Lagos to Abuja. It was a Ghanaian who went for the inspection, Emmanuel Dasuberi, and sent his report to CAF, and he's been duly approved. I'm sure if we had done that in November, all this wouldn't have come up. But once we have communicated to CAF that we are playing at Cape Coast, it is non-negotiable. You cannot change.
Have they communicated that they've accepted it?
Has CAF communicated? Cape Coast hosted our AFCON qualifiers and World Cup qualifiers. So yes, it's an approved venue. Okay.
Well, let's take the final batch of questions at this point. So this one is from Nanaya. Is the GFA on good terms with the ministry? And are they on the same page on how football must be run in this country? Sule says, Sunny, what are your thoughts on what's currently happening with the GFA and government, both pushing their preferred choice for the job, Sule? Now, isn't it right for government to hire coaches since they pay them? Safo is asking. And, okay, so this Sunny, he says, you've said on record that Otuado will be a prudent appointment should government go on to appoint Chris. Do you see him delivering in the current circumstances? Leila is asking Sunny. Favor says, do you see a situation where Chris will only be answerable to the government and not the FA should he be appointed? Malik says, should the FA push their own or kowtow to government in relation to appointing a Black Stars coach? Mafioso says, how would a coach feel being in this situation, knowing you don't have the FA support or the government? Is the environment conducive to work in? Okay, so that's some of the questions for both Sunny and then Kim Grant there. So Nanaya was asking Henry whether the GFA is in good terms with the ministry. Are you on the same page on how football must be run?
We've always been in good terms with the ministry. As to whether we are on the same page, I don't really think there is any problem. Yes, obviously the minister represents government. The FA also have our own understanding and appreciation of how football must be run in the country. The ministry will always make suggestions and inputs. Once those suggestions are good, you need to take them if indeed it would improve the situation. So we are partners. We've met several times where we come up with a whole lot of ideas and discussions. In the end, like I said earlier, we take the decision that is in the best interest of Ghana. It's not about an individual's interest. It's not about a group of people's interest. It is about the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is the interest of the ordinary Ghanaian, as the term, as the taxpayer. So we can go into a meeting where the minister thinks things must be done the other way around, and the FA thinks we should go, a different direction. But in the end, we always, reach a common consensus, and we find a common ground to make progress.
Okay. Well, we know that most of these things, qualifying to the World Cup, qualifying to the AFCON,
it is a
lifting the cup, it's always a political issue for those in government. Once they qualify, it helps them at least. And so, but the GFA also on the other hand, you also have a mandate. The executives there are those who also have the impression that it's there for business, amongst others. The GFA members are there for their business, their own interest, whilst the politicians also want to look good in the eyes of the public when it comes to this. But Sunny, there was a question for you about this in terms of how the approach should be and whether government, which pays these coaches, should not have a say in whom it's appointed.
You come down to the basis that those who are the technocrats is the federation. They know the game inside out. A lot of people maybe in government will have, a knowledge or an idea about football, but those who know the intricacies of the game are truly those who run the federation. So it is important that when there are thoughts, sometimes the FA can get it wrong. Sometimes the thoughts of government can also be wrong. But when, particularly if it is the body that is paying, you would expect that they would also want to have some level of say. When I say, I insist that this level of say should not be played out in public. It should be private. You can have talks, you can discuss, you can agree or disagree, but you should have a common ground. By the end of the meeting, have a common ground, and mostly don't take away the power of the FA to communicate this. When government decides to communicate this thing directly, it weakens the position of the federation, and it comes out in the eyes of many that there's some interference. But for instance, if you are able to influence somebody privately, why come out publicly to gloat? So if you can influence the FA privately, it is for the best of it, so that when, let's say, government changes, people will not say, oh, this coach is maybe an NDC coach or this coach is an MPP coach. It damages the coach himself. And then we must also remember, when the coach is fired and the coach decides maybe to go to CAF, where they would ask to enforce, not go to government. CAF will go to the GFA. And the FA gets annual subventions from FIFA. And they could be ordered that money that are supposed to come for the FA to run programs, to pay salaries, and the rest like that, could be withheld to pay the coaches. So these are some of the things, the difficulties that we have. So it is important that both sides, must not play these things out in the media, get to the table, talk, and get to, a nice decision. Chris is a wonderful coach. Nobody can take it away from Chris that he's a very, very good coach. He's experienced. For someone who's been able to coach the English Premier League, you cannot take anything away from him. But you can imagine that if this issue of government comes in, it actually robs him of that opportunity to say, I came into this position on merit, not on somebody's connection. And we should give the FA the opportunity to be able to say, we are announcing that we are assigned Chris Hughton as the coach of the national team of Ghana for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And it gives Chris the strength to be able to come out. Otherwise, the impression you give people, not only in Ghana, but abroad, is that it's a government imposition. Let's avoid that. We can, there are many ways of killing a cat. So it should not be just the one blanket way of seeing things. So let's play ball. FA, government, let's come together this week. Let's come together, sit down, Jojo, and reach a decision.
We'll see how it goes. But Kim, the concern that, well, government pays these coaches anyway, so why can't they hire them?
No, because I think it's the mandate of the federation to do that, not the government. It's okay if the funding is coming from the government, so be it, because obviously it's the public's money. But of course, the GFA is representing the nation, the government's representing the nation, but ultimately the GFA is under the FIFA and the CAF ruling. So and the directives is about the GFA have to have the mandate to actually appoint the next successor for the Black Stars. And of course, I agree with certain points what Sani has been talking about. It could be a dangerous path further down the line where decisions where, especially for Chris as well, because as he said, if they appoint him, then what's the credibility of the GFA in long term? And the next political situation party comes in power, what is that going to represent? Can they also bring somebody in and then give direct to GFA? So of course, at the end of the day, it's about the GFA, the government, Ghana Football Association, to make sure that they do communicate with the government, come to mediation, or come to common grounds on the same page, and make sure that they choose the best coach for the Ghana. Because at the end of the day, it's about the nation. It's not about the GFA. It's about getting the right person to do the job and qualifies to the World Cup, and obviously be successful short term and long term as well. So it's a very, very tricky situation for both coaches, not just Chris, but for both coaches, because one minute the GFA can go for Otu, and next minute, and if both of them are not successful, either one will fall on their sword. And so I think at this moment in time, I think it's got to be the GFA's decision, the support of the government. There's got to be a mediation to make sure that it's on both common grounds and that both of them actually is the right man for the right job. Either financially support from the government as well as the GFA, making sure that the infrastructure, all the preparation, everything's in place to make sure that we have a successful Ghana national team.
Okay, well, we still have our eyes also on that game between Senegal and Egypt, and it's just gone into extra time. like you were expecting. Maybe it looks like it's going to have a penalty shootout as well. But where it was the GFA executives yourselves, were you surprised knowing that you were talking to Otuado and then you heard that Chris Hughting was also being bandied about in the media that that's the government's choice? What really was the reaction or in the corridors of GFA when this particular issue came up?
Well, personally, what I know is that Chris has been around for the past 1 week or so. My checks revealed that he was on holidays because he wanted to come in December.
But there are pictures about him interacting with Odoi's father, amongst others.
It didn't happen. I mean, interacting with Odoi's father could be anything because they both live in England. They are of Ghanaian descent. A former Premier League manager and then a top player in Chelsea. It's normal that you once come home and you get to meet and get to discuss football. So it's normal. But I do not want to think that it is all being done in anticipation of something. I just want to believe that it's one of those things that happen. We've met as a body. We took a decision as a body. We believed in the decision that we took as a body, and we have pursued that particular decision. And until the unforeseen circumstance happen, we will always, stick to that particular decision.
Well, in wrapping up, because I'm sure you would all want to go and catch the extra time of this particular game.
After Mani's penalty miss.
But really, Sunny, Kim, and then I'll give the final word to Henry. We have just a few minutes to run. Beating Nigeria in these qualifiers and heading to the World Cup is of great importance to all of us. How hopeful are you that that's going to happen? Sunny?
I think we can beat Nigeria. We have got the players to do it. We need a good technical direction. Nigeria are in the same situation as us.
From what you saw in the game in AFCON, with all that you've seen with the AFCON, Nigeria's performance versus what we did?
Well, I think that a lot of things will change by the time we play Nigeria. We had some injuries. By the time we play Nigeria, those injuries could resolve. The coach has changed. I don't think he deployed our players well. And a few, I would say selection issues that we had at the AFCON. By that time, those things could resolve. And when they resolve, we'll be good. We have a good team. We have a...
Well, let me bring in Kim, because we're really out of time. Kim, how about you, briefly?
Yes. You were supposed to have played this evening. I don't know if you played. If Kudus comes back, we have Wakaso back. No. I think our goalkeeping direction should change a little bit.
Okay.
If we are able to do that, we'll be fine. We should not panic.
Okay. Thank you, Sunny. Kim, how about you? How hopeful are you?
I think you can't compare a tournament to a two-game situation. Totally different elements, totally different pressures. Most important is about the coach coming in or the technical department coming in, and the pool of players the squad that they're going to assemble for this game. Obviously, things didn't go well so much in the AFCON. Changes in terms of, like Sunny said, Nigeria will also be under pressure because it's a two-legged game and it's going to be a totally different scenario. And you're going to have the home venue and you're going to have the away venue, the intimidation and everything. So for me, I think it's possible that we will qualify. But it's about what the squad of players we select and how we prepare.
Thank you very much, Kim Grant. Henry?
Well, we are hopeful. Obviously, the technical direction of the team would change, as Sunny mentioned. The mentality of the players would change. I was looking at the squad we took to the tournament yesterday, and out of the 27 players who represented us in the absence of Kudus Mohammed, only 3 of those players have tasted the World Cup tournament before. Jonathan Mensah, Jordan Ayew, and then Andre. And I think Wakasu also played in 2014 in Brazil. So these players are hopeful of making history. And I think if you are Thomas Partey and you have 2 games to play at the World Cup, to rub shoulders with the best across the globe, you should be, motivating yourself to get to the World Cup, and that's what we are all hoping for.
Yeah, well, we're all hoping that we beat Nigeria to it and qualify to Qatar 2022. And that's it for tonight's edition of The Probe here on the Joy News channel, also by joyonline.com. My guests for tonight, Henry Asante-Chum, Communications Director of the GFA. Many thanks for your company. We had Ibrahim Sanidara, his media manager, also CAF, and also a former Communications Director of the GFA, also joining us. We have Kim Tyrone Grant, is a coach, a former footballer as well. Once a footballer, always a footballer. I am MFA Pau. Many thanks for your company. There's more news.
I used to work in Grant's Charlton Athletic Jesse back in the day.
You see. Many thanks for your company. Have a good evening.